Welcome in everybody from Zoom land to Chili Peppers from A to Z. It is a little chilly out there today, so we'll try to warm it up a little bit with discussion of some of the hot peppers. There are a couple of attachments that will be provided after the seminar. Ginger is going to send those to you via email. One attachment is a list of pepper seed sources that I use. And there's also a list of local nurseries that I have used from time to time to buy plants whenever my plants don't turn out too well. There's also a separate attachment as a list of references. There's about 30 different references. If you want to study this subject in further detail, you can check out some of those references. So with that as a start, we'll go ahead and get into it. There will be two segments within the program to catch up on any questions. It's about 40, slide number 41, and then again at number 103, the first stopping point will be at the end of a discussion of the flavor wheel, which looks something like this. And then the second session for questions will be at the end of a discussion on the hottest pepper in the world. That's the Carolina Reaper. Then again, questions allowed at the end of the session. So let's go ahead and get her rolling. With the purpose of the program being to share my knowledge with you, and likewise, if you had something to add or questions to enhance the program, feel free to ask those questions or comment. And the primary mission of the program, that presentations, the seminar, is to provide an information resource for education. Here are the primary topics we'll be covering today: the classification and anatomy of the pepper, nutritional aspects, and how to start your pepper plants from seeds indoors. We'll cover information on sweet peppers, hot peppers, the insects and diseases that may affect the plants here in Galveston County area. Primarily, pest management practices, insects, disease, other issues, and then the uses of peppers for cooking purposes. I have a few tips on that as well. So we'll get into the botanical classification of the pepper plant. It is a perennial flowering plant, usually grown as an annual. It's in the family Solanaceae, or nightshade family. It's known primarily as the chili peppers. It's not the common black pepper, and the Latin classification is Piper nigrum. The nightshade family includes eggplants, potatoes, tomatoes, petunias, and tobacco. That's important to know, because if you grow some of these same plants in the same area, you're likely to pick up some of the same disease and insect issues. So you want to rotate away from this family of plants whenever you're planting other vegetables in the same area of the similar classification. It is in the genus Capsicum, and there are 5 major domesticated species. The primary one that you'll see most often is the species Annuum. That includes about 80% of the peppers that we grow here. It includes the ancho, bell pepper, cayenne, cherry, jalapeno, and some of the ornamentals of Pekin and serranos. Chinese is a species that includes the superhots, the habaneros, the Trinidad Moruga scorpion, the Carolina Reaper is the hottest. It's in that particular species. Bacatum is another species that you'll find the berry-like, mild and hot, the ahi type peppers. I have a few of those that I'll be able to show you. Frutescens are the bushy type peppers. Tabasco is a good example. And pubescens, you don't see those around as much as some of the others. That includes a Recado and Manzano. It's a little more difficult to grow in this area. It actually likes a little cooler weather. Then beyond the domesticated species that you find, you'll sometimes find some of the wild species not commonly found in the area. If you want to see a lot of chili peppers at one place, the best opportunity you'll find is at New Mexico State University, their Chili Pepper Institute. They have a education or demonstration garden there. If you go in August, you'll be able to see over 200 different varieties of peppers there. This was my trip there in August of 2012. Let's look at the anatomy of the flower of a pepper plant, just to know, the male parts, female parts, and pollination. The male parts, so they included in the stamen, the anther, and the filament where the pollen is generated. And then you have the pistil, including the stigma, style, and ovary that is pollinated, forming the seed. And let's look at the pepper pod. I think it's important to know some of the components of the pepper pod. Just looking at the outer walls, you have three different layers: the outer layer, exocarp; middle layer, mesocarp; inner layer, the endocarp. There's a tip of the pepper pod is the apex, the stem, peduncle, and the bottom part of that stem is a calyx. And then the inner membrane is the placenta. You have the seeds that are obvious here. And then right here, let's see if we can blow this up a little bit. Right in this area is an important part of the pepper pod, especially the hot peppers. There's a capsaicin glands right in this area. It's usually on the inner part of the placenta next to the wall. You'll see the glands that generate the hot constituent, the capsaicin of the hot pepper plants. Now, the sweet peppers do not have the glands at all. The intermediate range peppers will have the glands located in this area. The super hots actually have capsaicin glands all around the wall there throughout. That's part of the reason they are extra hot. Let's talk a little bit about capsaicin. It is the active component of the hot pepper part of the pepper plants. Their capsaicin is actually one of 22 capsaicinoid type chemicals that provide the heat constituent. It is odorless, flavorless, and non-nutritional. It does not have any flavor. It does provide the kick or the pungency through the pepper. It provides another dimension in that respect. It is an irritant for humans and other mammals. It does not affect birds. Humans and other mammals have a protein receptor that will match up nicely with capsaicin and other capsaicinoid compounds and provide the heat. It's a mechanism to give us a warning when something is getting too hot for us. Doesn't affect birds, it'll go right through them. So for that reason, it's good to know that you can use pepper spray, capsaicin, and use it for a deterrent for certain mammals. Squirrels, for instance, and rabbits are affected, whereas birds are not. You can deter squirrels and rabbits in the garden with pepper spray. It does cause a burning sensation on the skin and tissue. If you are overexposed, you can use cold milk as a remedy. That's the best treatment for overindulgence in hot peppers. It does have certain medicinal uses. There's actually ointments that have capsaicin as a constituent. It does provide some thermal high metabolic activity. So it's actually used in some cases as weight reduction, and it also used for control of insulin for diabetic issues. Pest deterrent, I've already mentioned, as a pepper spray, and also you've heard of pepper spray as a self-defense in high concentrations of capsaicin. It's good to know where it came from originally, just to give you some perspective. Thought that it came from South and Central America about 7,500 BC. Introduced to the rest of the world by the Spanish and Portuguese. Originally named pepper plant by Christopher Columbus and his ventures. He thought he was making a shortcut to India and looking for one of the spices as the black pepper. That's what he thought he had, so that's why he named it pepper. Of course, this is a different species altogether. The chili pepper, it's a little confusing on the name. The generally accepted name is chili, C-H-I-L-E, chili pepper, as opposed to C-H-I-L-L-I, C-H-I-L-I, ahi, or paprika. There's other names, but they all mean the same thing. It's chili pepper, and it's in the genus Capsicum. There is a Chile Pepper Institute, C-H-I-L-E, Chile Pepper Institute at New Mexico State University. They are more or less the leaders of chili pepper research here in the United States. Nutritional values of peppers is interesting in that it contains more vitamin A than any other plant. Excellent source of vitamins C and B. And the vitamin A in a pepper increases as the fruit matures and dries. Vitamin C decreases as the fruit matures and is exposed to air. It also contains high levels of carotenoids or antioxidants, and it increases the metabolic rate by thermic effect that I mentioned before. Here's a good comparison study in nutritional values of peppers versus carrots, oranges, potatoes, and tomatoes. If you take 1 gram of each vegetable and analyze it for vitamin A and vitamin C, you'll find that a pepper, bell pepper in this case, has substantially more vitamin A than a carrot and more vitamin C than fresh orange. And in any case, it has more vitamin A than any of the other fruits and vegetables. So starting from seed, you want to treat peppers as you would tomato plants. You want to start them indoors in the winter so you can optimize the fruit set in the right temperature range. If you tried to start it from seed in the soil outdoors, it wouldn't start germinated until it warmed up, and then your timing would be off on the pollination and fruit set. So indoors, about 8 weeks prior to planting. For Galveston County, I like to go early to mid-January for starting seeds, and shoot for a target date of mid-March to early April. Looking at an ideal soil germination temperature of 70 to 85 degrees. You'll want to provide a heat mat under the source in order to optimize the right temperature rather than room temperature. You want to warm up a little beyond room temperature. After the seedlings start, you'll want to use a balanced solution of soluble fertilizer, 15, 15, 15. You could use nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and you maintain wet, moist soil. Young seedlings, you'd use about 1/4 teaspoon of fertilizer per gallon of water. For the older plants with 2 or 3 seed leaves or sets of leaves, you'd want to use about 1/2 teaspoon of fertilizer per gallon of water, and that's your watering source, fertilized water. Planting media, you could use seed starting soil, potting soil, sponge cells, or the peat pots. I've got a couple of examples further into the presentation here. Here's one thing to be concerned about if you're using the same media or the containers over and over. You want to make sure that they are sterilized before you introduce additional planting soil. It is subject to the dampening off disease caused by different fungus. Symptoms would be a germination failure, thin, weak seedlings, gray to brown leaves, stunted or absent roots, white, fluffy, cobweb-like growth. Make sure you use new trays or sterilize the existing one. There, I've got an example of what this looks like. An issue I had some time ago, wasn't careful enough, and that's what I ran into. So it's going to take about 10 days to 2 weeks for germination time once you start the seeds. For the hot peppers, it will take longer. It could take 3 weeks to a month. The chiltepin, habanero, and ghost peppers, those are some of the super hots. It'll take longer. Now, actually, there have been studies showing with pretty much a linear relationship between the capsaicin content and the germination time. The more capsaicin content, the longer the germination time. After you have the plants up and growing indoors, you'll want to expose them to outdoor conditions gradually. You want to acclimatize them to experience the actual wind conditions, and sunlight. Harsh sunlight is going to be more intense than your indoor fluorescent light. Here's a setup that I had with indoor fluorescent heat mat, and these are peat pots with some plants coming up. And these are sponge cells. And outdoors, exposing it to wind and sun conditions. A little further along in the process, getting ready for in-ground planting. In the background, this is my little reach-in greenhouse. It's a 4x4x4, sliding glass panels all around. I have a heater inside as well. I have a temperature monitor. These are additional plants that have been hardened off and ready to plant into the ground. This is after planting in the ground. This is my garden area in the backyard behind the garage. It's about a 15-foot by 30-foot area I have back here. It equates to about 10 raised beds, although I don't have it boarded off. And here's a little further along in the pepper plant. Corn in the background, further along in the process. In the foreground here, we have, this is a giant Marconi sweet pepper, and this is a red night sweet pepper. I'll give you a little more detail on those later on. I have used hay as a mulch to try to keep down the weeds and provide soil moisture. You can grow pepper plants in containers as well. If you don't have the garden space, raised bed, or amended soil, you can grow them in containers. Just keep in mind that it's going to be a little more labor intensive in terms of keeping up with it, the watering, particularly when it's very hot outdoors. Here's another container grown plant. This is a Tabasco. Also, for those of you that are interested in aquaponics, either if you have your own or you're thinking about growing plants in aquaponics, you can grow peppers. This is our aquaponics here at the Discovery Garden. We put in a few pepper plants here just to show that they can be done. And this is bed 40 out at our Discovery Garden. I usually have in the spring 10 pepper plants there. I usually go from the sweet peppers to the hottest peppers, 1 through 10, and do some experimentation, production numbers, and disease issues, study those as a matter of research. And here's a volunteer pepper plant that came up in my shrub bed from a bird seed that was dropped there. It looks like it some version of the Tabasco plant. It just popped up, and I decided to maintain it and trim the shrubs around it. A couple of points on the culture of pepper plants. You'll want to make sure you have at least 6 to 8 hours of full sun. The ideal sun would be a drained sandy loam rich in organic matter. The ideal temperatures for setting fruit, and you want to have a nighttime temperature of 55 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, a daytime temperature 65 to 80. So the spring, late spring through early summer, you'll have those conditions. Once you run into late summer, it's going to get too hot. The nighttime temperatures would be up and above 80. If you have daytime temperatures above 95 degrees, it will not set fruit. Also, if you're on the other end of the temperature spectrum, you want to stay away from temperatures in the 40s, particularly low 40s. They do not like those cool of temperatures. On the planting, it is not like a tomato plant. You don't bury it up above the hip of the original plant. You don't bury the stem like you would a tomato plant. You plant it to the original pot level that you're transplanting. You want to keep them about 18 to 24 inches apart. for good air circulation. For support, you can use tomato cages. They work good for peppers, not so good for tomatoes. Cool weather protection. If you want to push the envelope, you want to start a little earlier, and you have cool weather coming in like we're having next week. First, you'd want to avoid a hard freeze. That's going to knock it out altogether. But if you already have it planted, you're anticipating a light frost, you can protect it with plastic cover around the cages. You can use dark mulch on the in and around the ground as well. That'll help out. Fertilizing. After the plants are in the ground, at first bloom, for supplemental fertilizer, what I like to do is add some ammonium sulfate. That's 2100. You can side dress the plant with about 2 tablespoons per plant, or about 1 tablespoon per linear foot around the base of the plant. And the side dressing, of course, is a little trench around the plant about 2 inches deep and wide. You fill it in with the ammonium sulfate and water it in well. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Scoville units, what makes a hot pepper hot and how is it measured. It's commonly referred to as a Scoville heat unit. It was developed by Wilbur Scoville in 1912. He was a pharmacist. He was asked to develop a method to determine the pungency of certain spices. So he developed this method whereby you would dilute the ground up pepper with sugar water. The more you had to dilute it, the higher the Scoville unit. And you can use an alcohol extract to remove the capsaicin from the dried pepper. It is then diluted with the sugar water to give you the Scoville unit. So if you're looking at a sweet pepper, you would have 0 Scoville units. It takes no dilution at all. You don't have any capsaicin at all. If you had a ghost pepper, you would have to use an equivalent, say 1 milliliter of capsaicin extract diluted with 1,000,000 milliliters of the sugar water, and that will give you a Scoville unit rating of 1,000,000. Today, rather than using test panels, and this was done with panels of people that would taste it and keep diluting it, and that would be the old way. That was the method started in 1912. Today, it's done more scientifically with high performance liquid chromatograph to get actual concentration in parts per million. That is still referred back to the Scoville unit, and you would convert the concentration in parts per million to get your Scoville units. As an example, if you have 500 parts per million, if a jalapeno had liquid chromatograph test of 500 parts per million, in order to get that converted to Scoville units, you'd multiply the 500 parts per million times a factor of 16, and you would have 8,000 Scoville heat units. If you have pure capsaicin at 100%, that would be 1,000,000 parts per million. You multiply, in order to get to Scoville units, you would take the million times 16, and that would give you 16 million Scoville heat units. That's actually the heat value of pure capsaicin. This gives you a little more perspective as well on heat comparison, relative heat values of sweet peppers versus hot peppers. It's another way to look at it with the so-called ring of fire developed by Chile Pepper Institute. We'll take a closer look at it here. It just increases from 0 to the maximum at this time is a Trinidad Moruga scorpion. You have 0 for a bell pepper, and then you go around the ring of fire with a different type chili peppers, Hungarian wax at 1,500 Scoville units. Further up, you'd have a Milta jalapeno at 18,000 Scoville units. Cayenne peppers, 33,000, getting hotter as you go through the ring. So ají amarillo, 58,000. Scotch bonnet habanero, 100,000, 110,000. Tabasco, 120,000. Keep going till ultimately you get to the ghost pepper, which has about 1,000,000 Scoville units, and the Trinidad Moruga scorpion at 2,000,000 Scoville units. And there's actually one that's hotter than that, and that is a Carolina Reaper. Is not shown on the ring of fire here. And this gives you other comparisons of Scoville units and super hot peppers and some of the timeline. The ghost pepper is also known as the boot jolokia, tested at an average value of about 1,000,000 Scoville units, a peak value of 1.5 million in 2012. There are others in between. And then you've had the Trinidad Moruga scorpion at a peak value of 2,000,000 Scoville units in 2012. And then in 2013, we have the Carolina Reaper at a peak of 2.2 million Scoville units. There's other things besides just simply the heat, pure heat value of the capsaicin. There's other ways to characterize it. And that was actually analyzed by Dr. Paul Boslin of the Chile Pepper Institute, and he determined the development rate, how long does it take to hit you from 0 to 30 seconds, how long does it last, and where does it hit the worst, the lips, the mouth, tongue, mid-palate, the throat, all of the above, and how does it feel, sharp or flat, is it mild, medium, hot? That's the intensity. And this is shown on his so-called flavor wheel. Give you a close-up here. He has different peppers with the different constituents. It's hard to see on the PowerPoint, and you may not be able to see the actual wording in here live, but it has, as you can see, it spins around the different peppers, and it measures or characterizes it by the pod type, the species, cultivars, the heat profile, whether it's delayed, sharp, mid-palate, so forth, so on, and the flavor, whether it's sweet, other characteristics, and different uses of the peppers where you could saute it, eat it raw, and so forth. Okay, so we'll press on and cover the sweet peppers. Cover sweet peppers, mid-range peppers, and the hot peppers. Um, At the end of this session, we'll provide opportunity for additional questions. Most of the peppers that I'll show in here are ones that I have actually grown myself. And the pictures are ones I have taken. Occasionally, the pictures from seed production companies are actually better than what I have, and I'll use those. In most cases, I'll give credit for where the peppers actually, the pictures originated from. This one, if you are strictly looking for a simple plain Jane sweet bell pepper, Big Bertha is one that you'll want to go with. I've had good success with this. It's long-standing, been around for many years. The lobes are 6 to 8 inches. It's resistant to tobacco mosaic virus. The harvest time is about 70 days. The Betta Bell is another good one. It's a little shorter, blockier, but very productive. California Wonder is an open pollinated heirloom pepper that has been around for 70 plus years. Another thing to note, well, I see this picture here about peppers, bell peppers, and the color. Most people will harvest them when they're mature, ripe, good size, and green. And that's what you would do for optimizing California Wonder. If you wanted to let it stay on the vine a little longer, it will darken and redden. Now, the color peppers, they are bred to optimize specific colors from time to time, the red, orange, yellow, and they'll all start out green. You just need to let them stay on the vine, on the plant a little longer, 2 or 3 weeks longer, and they will achieve their desired color. Another thing to mention on the peppers with color, the red, the green, or the yellow, orange, have more nutritional value than those just plain green. The carotenoids are what is representative, the nutritional component in the color peppers, as in the red knight. This is one of my favorite sweet red bell peppers. This is grown in my home garden years ago. This was actually back in 2011. And it does take a while for 2 or 3 weeks longer to go from the red to the red, green to red. And be careful that you have control of the circumstance there. If you have somebody else in your family that sees a nice big green pepper and they pick it because it's pretty, they don't wait long enough for it to turn red. So you have to monitor that, let the people know. That's happened to me a time or two. If you're looking for a nice orange bell pepper, these are still sweet. This one works well. It's Orange Sun. This one has a little longer maturity time than some of the others, 80 days. This is one that I've grown at my home garden. This was actually back in 2010. Hard to believe it's been that long. Orange Blaze, I've tried since then. That works pretty well. This was back in 2014 at my home garden. Early Sensation is one that is yellow, it goes yellow to golden color. It has a little longer maturity. You'll want to try to optimize on the maturity time. This one is a little long. You want to try to find something 70 days or less if you can, and still produces a good pepper. This is one I had fun with a few years back called Blushing Beauty. It has kind of a multicolor phased in approach. It goes from a kind of an ivory to a blush and then a deep red. You can pick them at either stage, but this is a full maturity red stage, and it's a nice sweet bell pepper. If you like the sweet banana peppers, I would recommend the Sweet Sunset Hybrid. Rather than just strictly yellow banana pepper, it will mature to an orange. And these banana peppers are a little longer, a little bigger than your standard sweet banana pepper. And this was one of the All-America Selections winner back in the day, 2015 or earlier. And if you like the Italian type long red peppers, I'd recommend the Giant Marconi. Large, red, sweet, and tasty, and very productive. I've had very good success with this almost every year. I'll have some growing this year as well. There's a close-up of the Giant Marconi. And this is some of the production data, taking measurements on it. And this was actually production data from 2016. One plant was able to get 60 peppers at about 3.5 pounds. Cubanelle is one that I believe we have for sale in our plant sale coming up here next weekend, I believe. You can purchase online. This is one of them. This one is listed as sweet, but be careful if you can't tolerate any heat at all. You probably want to stay away from this. It has a little bit of pungency to it, about 500 Scoville units or so. This is a nice, sweet, yellow to orange Italian type pepper. I've had good success with this, 7 to 9 inches long, 85 days maturity. Had pretty good production with this back in 2016. One plant, 34 peppers at about 5 pounds total. And this one, Crabassi, is kind of a novelty pepper. It's long, slender, curly, and it's sweet. It looks hot, but it is actually sweet. It goes from the pale green to yellow to red at maturity, and they are very sweet, nice peppers. And makes a good ornamental pepper. Some people actually would just use pepper plants as ornamentals, just to decorate their area, and don't care too much about eating them. This is one that you could use as an ornamental, as well as some others I'll mention here in a little bit. So we're moving up the heat scale, going from the sweet peppers to now the ones that have a little more of the heat unit, the capsaicin, going from 500 to 2,000 Scoville units. And this was one that I mentioned a while ago, the Poblano, the big boss man. I had pretty good success with this in my home garden, as you can see here. And this is the first set of fruit that is produced on here. And this is the actual size compared to my hand length here. This is about the size that you see of some of the larger poblano peppers in the store. So try that. If you haven't tried that before, Big Boss Man hybrid for your poblano peppers. Here's some more pictures of the same one. I took some measurements, production data on that particular one. By the way, to mention here, ancho is the dried version of a poblano pepper. Take this, dry it, and it's commonly referred to as ancho. Poblano is the fresh pepper of this type. And these are the New Mexico, let me back up, there we go. New Mexico, New Mex, sunrise, sunset peppers. These were developed by the Chile Pepper Institute at New Mexico State University. There's a sunrise, the yellow, sunset is the orange. These are a good peppers to grill. You may want to blister these, peel the outer skin, and they provide a nice sweet flavor, a little bit of pungency to them. Here's your Anaheim that somebody mentioned that they had issues with growing before. It is a New Mexican type chili, the Anaheim. I haven't had too much difficulty with it. This is actually one grown in my home garden at the green stage and then at maturity. See if we can get a close up of this here. You know, and if you are looking for a pepper of this type, you don't have the space or time to grow them yourself, you can find this one pretty much readily in most produce sections of the grocery store. This is a good pepper. It has a little bit of heat to it. It's good for sauteing, grilling, put it in your omelet. So I'd consider this one as a substitute for ones that you can't grow yourself. The Cajun Bell, if I'm not mistaken, is also, yeah, one that is listed for our sale. I've grown this before. These are spicy bell peppers. They're small, but they do have a pretty good flavor. If you want a bell pepper that has a little bit of heat to it, consider the Cajun Bell. This is my favorite pepper of all. It has a little bit of heat. It's very productive, very flavorful. Saguaro. These are ones that I try to grow every year. I grill them, saute them, put them in my omelet. Very productive, very pretty flower if you wanted to consider this as an ornamental as well. Some of the measuring photos here. Oh, this is a garden salsa. I'm sorry, this is a different one here. I've had pretty good success with this, and I usually grow this every year as well. This is a long, slender chili, 7 inches long to 1 inch wide, and has about 3,000 Scoville units. This is one I harvested from the demonstration garden, or now Discovery Garden, back in May of 2017. Okay, moving up the scale, we have the hotter chilies. 5,000 to 100,000 Scoville heat units. This is a jalapeno type, one that I've grown before. There are better ones out there, but this is still a good jalapeno, chichimeca. Fairly short maturity time, 65 days. Pretty good size, 4 inches long, 2 inches wide. Good for pickling. Sriracha, I grew just this last time I grew peppers out in the Discovery Garden. Very productive, darker green, about 5,000 Scoville units. And production data on this, I collected enough to produce 9 pounds from this one plant over 4-month period. It doesn't take, if you're looking for good production, it only takes 1 or 2 jalapeno plants to give you and your family and friends enough jalapenos for pickling for the season. Going backwards. Okay, here we go. This, if you're looking for one of the best jalapenos, I would consider Emerald Fire. This was All-American Selection winner years ago. I've had very good success with it over the years. And here's some of the production data for this particular year in 2016. One plant had 185 peppers and 10.5 pounds. Disease resistant. Jalafuego is another type jalapeno I've grown over the years. Very productive. One little issue with this particular one, and it's prone to what's known as corking. You see the marks on here, like stretch marks. It grows faster than the skin allows. And some are more prone to this than the other. It's nothing wrong with the peppers, just the appearance of it. If you wanted to provide these for prizes or sale or something, you wouldn't want to show these off as compared to these. Serranos, Serrano del Sol is a good Serrano type. I've had good success with this. About 5,000 Scoville units, by 65 days to maturity. You don't see the contrast here as you do some of the other plants, but you can see it in here. Nice peppers within the plant. Flaming Jade is one that I have favored in the last few years. A nice long Serrano type pepper. I'll be growing those this year. 65 days maturity, 4 inches long, 1 inch wide, about 3,000 Scoville units. Very productive. And this one, moving up the scale on Scoville units. No, I think it's still in the intermediate range, 5,000 Scoville units. Bulgarian carrot, named that because it actually looks like a carrot growing on the plant here, but it is hot and very attractive if you want to look for something that's hot and an ornamental. This was back in 2014. And this one has become very popular around here over the past few years. The fish pepper has an interesting history. Originally brought over by African slaves back in the colonial days to Chesapeake Bay, Virginia, and it was used to harvest the white pods on here to produce a spicy sauce for fish. As opposed to black pepper, this produced a spicy white cream sauce. Nice thing about this is it is an attractive plant. You see the variegated leaves and variegated pepper. Let's bring this up a little bit here. See if we can, where's the, there we go. Okay. You can see the variegated leaves, the white pepper pod, and the variegated peppers here. It goes from immature to white to variegated, and it will ripen to red. And this is it's similar to jalapeno, except that it is much, much hotter. It gets up to 60,000 Scoville units. People found this out when they tried some of these in our group here. And you might want to research this, look at the history on this. It's very interesting. This was taken, the fish pepper, back at the New Mexico State University Educational Garden, and this is taken at my home garden with the fish pepper. This is a very nice ornamental and practical culinary pepper. Is one of my favorites. It's the Japanese Hantaka. Long, slender, red, mature pepper that is very flavorful, very spicy, and makes a nice colorful plant. It's very hardy as well. Similar to the Thai pepper, Thai dragon. The Thai dragon is very hot, up in the 100,000 Scoville unit range. And you could get about 300 pods per plant or so. This is one I grew back in 2019 in my home garden. This is moving into different species. This is Bacatum, bishop's cat, kind of a novelty, different shape. They are hot, long maturity, 90 days. And this is a Bacatum as well. It's the Ahi Lemon. It does have a sort of a citrus flavor to it. And about 30,000 Scoville units. This is from Harvest at Home. Golden cayenne. If you don't like the red cayenne, you can find yellow cayenne, golden cayenne. Tabasco, everybody knows about Tabasco. Been around for 100+ years. The Macahini family in Avery Island, Louisiana. About 50,000 Scoville units. Has long maturity time, about 120 days. These are Tabasco plants at home. And this is actually the Tabasco production facility at Avery Island, Louisiana. This lady right here is one of the family members, and this is a tour guide. This red stick here that she is showing, the red baton, is actually used by the people that harvest in the field the Tabasco pepper from around the world. They don't do all their production there at Avery Island. Actually, most of it is farmed out to other areas of different parts of the world, so they have a continual supply. Well, this is used for the people picking the peppers to show what stage to pick the pepper, to pick it red, same color as this baton. These are some of the Tabasco bottles in the production line. If you haven't been over there, it's worth the trip just to go through the production facility and their store. This is a nice ornamental and also practical for making pepper vinegar. It's a New Mex Twilight. I usually have this in the ground every year. It goes from yellow to purple to orange, red, and sometimes all four colors at any given time. It's only about 1/4 inch long or so. Another view at home. Another view of the New Mex Twilight with a Tabasco in the background. And this is one that somebody brought in from the other Master Gardeners group. It's the black pearl. It would be a nice ornamental. You can also use this to do pepper vinegar. It has a red and black pepper and dark maroon type leaves on it, the black leaves. New Mex Easter, these are all ones developed by New Mexico State University, the Chile Pepper Institute. They have a pepper, I think, for about every holiday there is. Here's New Mex Easter with colors of Easter. New Mex Christmas with the red and green, and these are, again, the short red ornamental type peppers and pepper plants. This is a dwarf plant. Tabasco and New Mex Twilight harvested together for my pepper vinegar. And we'll get into the extreme hot, greater than 100,000. A chiltepin is a bird's eye pepper, small red peppers, and it has over 100,000 Scoville units. A chiltepin is has been adopted by the state of Texas as the official state chili pepper. And this is thought to be the original pepper in the Annuum species that other peppers have since evolved from. There's chiltepin harvest back in 2011, making my pepper vinegar. This is orange habanero, moving up the scale to about 200,000 Scoville units. Different flavor. Red Savina at one time held the world record for heat values at about 500,000 Scoville units. This was 94 to 2006. And the ghost pepper came onto the scene back in 2012 as the hottest pepper in the world at that time, with about 100 or a million Scoville units. It is more flavorful, I think, if you can get past the heat, more flavorful than some of the other hot peppers. I like to use it in sauces, and I dry it for dry pepper for flavoring. It is very difficult to germinate, as I mentioned before. The more capsaicin content, the longer maturity. And it's a long maturity time to 85 to 100 days. And it's very productive once it gets established. Here's a ghost pepper at home. Another shot of close up, and some of the later chili peppers that have come on the scene. Different names, different ones. Trinidad Moruga scorpion came on the scene in 2012 as the hottest. And then, oh, here's one taken at home, picture of that. And then lately, 2013 is the Carolina Reaper, current world record at 2.2 million Scoville units. All right, okay, we'll press on and get into next segment in insects, diseases, and other pests, and then we'll talk about pepper uses. Yeah, for the most part, the peppers are going to be less susceptible to disease and insect issues than tomato plants, for instance. Tomato plants, to me, are the most difficult plant to grow. They're desirable. I enjoy them, but compared to peppers, there seem to be more issues with them. There are issues to be concerned about with peppers, and I'll address those here. General controls, you want to use disease-resistant plants if possible. Make sure you have healthy seeds and transplants. Adequate spacing, you want to have about at least 24 inches to 36 inches between plants. Utilize crop rotation when practical. You don't want to put the nightshade pepper or plants in the same area. You want to water the plants early in the morning, if possible. Control the insects early in the season. Use good sanitation method. Keep everything picked up, leaf litter keep it clean, keep weeds out of the area. General controls, those work well to keep ahead of the game. For insects, there's approximately 15 different insects listed for references that may affect peppers. Most of them have not been observed or reported in this area in Galveston County, and most can be sufficiently controlled with good cultural or sanitation practices previously noted. And for some of the more troublesome issues, we can discuss those coming up here. The leaf-footed bugs seem to be the biggest issue as far as insects with both tomatoes and peppers. If you're not familiar with it, I'll show you a picture of it. And what it does is pierce the skins and leaves white blemishes. It spoils the appearance of the plant, and it provides a vector for disease on the plants. A couple of things that you can use to control it. Surround, which is a kaolin clay. It's a white clay, and it provides a barrier that the leaf-footed bug does not want to walk around in. And I'll show you pictures of that here shortly. Pyrethrin spray you can use to hit the juvenile stage of the leaf-footed bug. I'll show you the juvenile stage of that bug here shortly. That's a leaf-footed bug. Sure, most of the gardeners around here have seen that before, and that's a leaf-footed bug on a red night. The other way you can control it is to pick them off and squash them. That's not real fun or practical though. This is the juvenile stage of the leaf-footed bug. This is a stage where you see them in clusters on a plant, look like large army ants gathered around the plant. This is a stage where you can hit them with a pyrethrin spray. This is the other one that's similar to the leaf-footed bug in its effect. The green stink bug does the same thing as a leaf-footed bug. This is an immature stage, just hatching southern green stink bug in the nip stage. And this is what surround looks like on a giant Marconi plant. You see the white coating on here? It's a powder. You put it in water. It's about a cup or two of powder per gallon. You spray it on the plant. The leaf-footed bugs don't like to go after plants that are coated, and this will wash off pretty readily. It's safe, it's organic, and will not harm you. This is the same giant Marconi that has been washed off with surround. It will wash off with rain too, so after a good rainfall, you may need to recoat it. The insects with tomato and tobacco hornworms, not that big of a problem, but you may see them from time to time. They are easy to control with an organic treatment of Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT. It's a biological control. This is a tomato hornworm. Its cousin is a tobacco hornworm. The tomato hornworm you can see with the V-shaped design on its side. This is a tobacco hornworm. They do the same thing. They chew holes in the leaves and sometimes on the tomatoes. Cutworms can be an issue, particularly for your transplant. They will chew off the plant at the stem around at the base of the plant. So you have to be careful about that. What I like to use is to put a styrofoam cup around the base of the plant. That will protect it until it gets to the stage it's large enough and the cutworms won't bother it. This is what a cutworm does. This is actually on corn planting. Cutworm will cut off the stem right at the base. So if you put a paper cup, plastic cup around the base, it will protect it. Some people have used matchsticks around the base to protect it as well. Another issue has shown up from time to time, and it's not too much of an issue, but I'll mention it here. It's the corn borer worm. It actually prefers corn, but sometimes it'll show up in pepper plants, this is what it does. You can see on the calyx of the pepper plant, and it will burrow itself into the plant. This is a moss stage. Get back to what you can do about corn burrow. You want to make sure you pick up plant debris, and you can also use the BT as a control. So the spider mites could be an issue on pepper plants as well. They'll suck out the juices on leaves and could kill the plant if left uncontrolled. Simplest way is to use a water spray, insecticidal soap, and if need be, you can use miticides. Kelphane is one I think is still listed. There are others out there that are available as well. And this is what a spider mite looks like up close. This is actual size is less than a millimeter. And this is an issue that shows up from time to time. One that showed up in bed 40 out at the Discovery Garden is root knot nematode. This is actually a microscopic critter that collects itself in the root hairs and will suck the nutrients out of the plant above. And I've conducted a research study on this particular issue and have written a paper or two on this. This is what they look like in the roots. This is why they're called root knot nematode. Close up, you can see the root from pepper plant, and you can see the knots on here. Same over here. And they are in there and form these clusters and pull the nutrient value out of the roots. One day you'll be, here's another shot showing the nodules. So one day you'll be looking at your plant, say, look, everything looks great. The next day you come back and everything is withered, like over here. These look great. A few days later, everything is wilted. And that's the effect of a root knot nematode. You can get a few months production out of it, but if you have a high infestation of the root knot nematode, it'll knock out the plant pretty readily. And this is a close-up of the wilted plant. Another close-up of the wilted plant, the root knot nematode. And this is a more recent study over different plants called the Chinese bell. By the way, there's a sideline story to this plant here. It was called Chinese bell, but it was not a Chinese bell. It was actually a habanero. It was listed on the sweet end of it and turned out to be habanero. Definitely hot, not sweet. Mislabeled. So root knot nematode, a couple of things to consider for control. You want to make sure if your soil is infested with it, you don't spread it from one area to the other. You can employ crop rotation with non-nightshade plants, the broccoli, cabbage, the cold crops, onions, garlic, and sweet corn. You can rotate in and out. You can use trap crops. Elbon rye, French marigold are good trap crops. And you can use a lot of organic matter as opposed to sandy soil. And as a control, you can do soil solarization. That's what I did. And I'll show you some of the setup on that. But the root knot nematode don't like clay soil, the thicker soil with high organic matter as opposed to sandy soil. This is with Elbon rye. And here's the soil solarization. This is a single layer of plastic. This is a double layer of plastic. And I have temperature monitors in here to show you the temperature throughout the process. And the idea is for the soil solarization to heat it up and kill the root knot nematode. And this is actually a chart of the graph showing soil temperature number 1 at 10 inches, and number 2, 5 inches, number 3 at 3 inches, number 4 at 4 inches below the surface of the soil. You can see what happens here. This is a single layer of plastic, and when you put a double layer of plastic, it will increase the temperature, the soil temperature, substantially above the ambient temperature. Ambient temperature is a red line. The color other than red is the soil temperature. So at number 4, at 4 inches, you can see it gets pretty darn hot with a double layer. We're approaching 140 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface, 4 inches or so. But what you want to do is get it hot down below. This is about 10 inches below the surface, and you want to achieve at least 110 degrees Fahrenheit for 14 hours or so, or 105 degrees for 48 hours. That is a kill threshold for root knot nematode. And this was back in 2015. This was more recent in 2018. Only had one temperature probe here. This was at a depth of 12 inches, essentially the bottom of it. And we were able to get 110 degrees, 105 degrees for about 48 hours or so. Hopefully that's good enough to kill the root knot nematode. And rotated back and forth with the the coal crops and corn as well. There's a corn production, coal crops, and also tilled this in. This has a deterrent chemical component in it in the soil, as has the added benefit. And this is the crop in 2019. So we have some diseases that should be mentioned. The fungal, about 10 fungal, 10 viral types. Most of them have not been observed in the area. Some have been. We'll touch on those. Gray mold is one that is shown up. I'll show a picture of what that looks like. Good cultural practices is the main consideration for control. You can also use Serenade, copper fungicide as a control. That's what it looks like, the gray mold. Bacterial leaf spot also could show up as leaf lesions, begin as a circular water-soaked spots and large spots. I'll show pictures of that. And you can, again, the cultural controls are the main things. And you can use, again, the Serenade or copper fungicide. There's a good substitute for Serenade. It's a Monterey Complete. It's a bacterial fungicide. I'll show that to you here shortly. Serenade has sort of priced itself out of the business. Here's what bacterial leaf spot looks like. See if we can get a close-up of some of the areas here. And here's the Serenade, and here's the Monterey Complete. It's the both bacteria active ingredients, Bacillus subtilis for Serenade and Bacillus amyloliquefaciens for Monterey Complete. This, I think, is going to be a better alternative right now, primarily because Serenade has become just too expensive. Let's see. Copper fungicide, it's organic. You can use that for organic fungicide control as well. It's a copper soap, essentially, is what it is. Antibiotic disorders, blossom end rot. You've probably seen that in tomatoes. It's a physiological, not biological concern. It usually caused by too much nitrogen, highly variable soil levels. Goes from very wide, very dry to very wet. It's a water-soaked area. The cure is to maintain even soil and use resistant pepper varieties if necessary. This is what it looks like, blossom end rot on a pepper. Sun scald, you may see this if you don't have leaf covering over the pepper. It's a sunburn, essentially what it is. That's what it looks like. Make sure your area is covered from harsh sun if possible. So pepper uses, we talked about that a little bit, go into it a little further. It can go with raw, grilled, sauteed, pickled, pepper vinegar, dried, and salsa. Here's one of my pepper harvests with a lot of different varieties. This was sometime back in 2012. And I like to grill them. These are some that I put directly on the grill. You want to blister it and peel off the skin, and it gives you a nice sweet flavor for the walls underneath. Pepper vinegar, it's easy to do. The smaller peppers are more colorful and fit into your pepper vinegar bottle better. Here's chiltepin pepper vinegar. And that's a pepper vinegar process with my grandson there. Salsa, I have my own salsa recipe. I'll put a couple of hot peppers in pickled okra. And if you're looking for salsa, hot salsa these days, there's plenty available out on the grocery shelves. That's what capsaicin looks like on the chemical structure. It's about a 304 molecular weight compound. And this is one of our processes of drying the peppers, ghost peppers, dehydrator, food dehydrator. And you'll notice here that I have on gloves, very important if you're handling hot peppers, and glasses. Don't want that in your eyes. It did happen to me once before when I was doing this process, drying it and got the fine powder that blew into my eye. I knew that I was in trouble right away, but fortunately I knew what to do. I actually took a shot glass of milk and doused it 2 or 3 different times to wash it out. Otherwise, I would have wound up in the emergency room. So one thing to keep in mind in case you get into that kind of trouble. This is the volume of hot or ghost peppers raw right before processing. And this is the drying phase of it. And this is a dehydrator. Outside, that's the other thing. You don't want to be doing this inside, so it will fumigate the room. So if you're also grinding them, you want to have a designated coffee grinder if that's what you want to use. Don't use it for coffee or you'll have some hot, spicy coffee. So all the peppers you saw in the colander a while ago were reduced down to this little bit of dried pepper and into this jar. So I think we are going to wrap it up at this point. Just one important last point. If you don't get anything else out of this on handling hot peppers, just be sure that you either use rubber gloves or you wash your hands before you go to the restroom. It will be a problem, I guarantee it.